there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about what you do in the event of a crash. Now, just before we get started here, if you're working towards a license or starting your career as a truck or bus driver, be sure to hit that subscribe button over there and get access to all of the great information as I get it available for you to look at and learn. This video on what to do in the event of a crash is for Ashlyn. Ashlyn asked me to get this video done, and I do apologize for the length of time it's taken me to get this done. This is for the group of students working with Michael down there in Lincoln Park, Michigan, and working towards their license. So, two types of crashes that you're going to have. You're going to have a minor crash and you're going to have a major crash. And we're going to talk about minor crashes and what you do in the event of minor crashes. And then we're going to talk about what you do in the event of major crashes. We're going to talk about the three types of crashes that you're most likely to be involved in. There's another one, sideswipe, but most of the time when you have a sideswipe crash, it's incidental and you can drive your vehicle again. The three most prominent types of crashes that you're going to be involved in, that you're going to do something, are rear end crashes, head-on collisions, and T-bone crashes. Those are going to be the most serious and most prominent types of crashes that you may or may not be involved in, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well in the body of the video. So stick around, we'll be right back with that information. Drivers, welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about what you do in the event of a crash. Now, I talked about minor and major crashes. If you're involved in a crash in an urban area, it's at lower speed, so most of the time it's going to be a minor crash if you have it in an urban area. If you're out on the highways and you're at highway speeds, most of the time it's going to be a major crash, so know that. As well, know that 40% of crashes occur at intersections, so be careful at intersections. And I advocate and I tell students, I tell veteran drivers as well, do not change lanes in an intersection. More than 40% of crashes happen in intersections, and you do not need to be doing a lane merge in an intersection while you're driving it through it. It just increases exponentially your chances of being involved in a crash because there is too much going on. So do not merge through an intersection, because a very high percentage of the crashes occur at intersections. Now, the three types of crashes that you're most likely to be involved in are rear end crashes, head-on collisions, and T-bone crashes. Now, the two that are most prominent at intersections are rear end crashes and T-bone crashes. And T-bone crashes are most likely very deadly, and I've talked about this in videos previously, that head-on collisions have been reduced significantly due to concrete barriers between lanes of traffic going down highways. They've also been reduced because we've paved shoulders, and shoulder drop-off was one of the major causes of head-on collisions, because novice drivers would drop off the shoulder road, crank the steering wheel back, careen across the lane of traffic and into the oncoming lanes of traffic. So that was often the reason why we had head-on collisions. So those have been reduced due to road engineering, so they're not as prominent, but they still occur. Rear end crashes and T-bone crashes. So those are the three types of crashes that you're most likely going to be involved in that are going to cause property damage and injury. Now, the other thing you need to know as well, vulnerable road users, and we call them vulnerable road users because when this group of road users in traffic is involved in a crash, they're going to be injured or they're going to be killed, and that's pedestrians, cyclists, people on scooters, and cyclists. Did I say cyclists? I think I said cyclists. Motorcycles. So pedestrians, cyclists, riders on motorcycles, and people on scooters. Those are the vulnerable road users, and pedestrians on our roadways make up for about 25% of road fatalities. And one of the problems now with pedestrians and crashes involving cars and pedestrians is that they're talking on their cell phone while they're walking across the street and they're not paying attention. And I cannot stress the importance of sound when you're driving, and I'll put a card up here for you for the video on sound, and I'll also put a card up in the corner there. Also have a look for that on rear end crashes and what you can do to prevent rear end crashes. Now, the first type of crash that I'm going to talk about is minor crashes that involve mostly property damage. They don't involve injury or fatalities. And for minor injuries, if you back into somebody or you sideswipe somebody or you have some sort of property damage, most of these licensing authorities and insurance agencies now have claims reporting centers. So if there's less than $1,000 in damage, none of the vehicles have to be towed. the vehicles can be driven, and there aren't any fatalities, nobody was killed in the crash, then you can simply move the vehicle, get the information from the other person, the other driver or person who is involved in the crash. And the information that you need is you need their name and their address. If they have a driver's license, you need their driver's license number. If they're driving a vehicle, if it's another vehicle, you need their license plate number. Now, we all have phones in this day and age with cameras on them, so take lots of pictures of the crash and note the location of where you are, so that the insurance company can investigate, and if police get involved, they can investigate as well. Now, when I say take pictures, the other thing that I suggest to you and I encourage you is to take a sketch of the crash or collision scene, because oftentimes pictures do not tell the whole story, because you can't get a sense of perspective of where things were situated in pictures. So make sure you draw a sketch and you label out on the sketch where things are. And if you're taking pictures of smaller items and those types of things, make sure you put something in the image that will give you scale. For example, a currency note. I wanted to say dollar bill, but they only have those in the US. Here in Canada, we don't have dollar bills anymore. So you could put that in the image, and that way that will give investigators some sort of scale. So you need scale in your pictures, and you also need to have a sketch, a map of what was drawn there, so that you can put the pictures that you take on your phone into perspective. So that's the first type of crash. That's a minor crash. The second type of crash that you're likely to be involved in is a major crash, and a major crash involves injuries, it involves property damage over $1,000. Vehicles have to be towed, or there's a fatality, somebody got killed in the crash. When that happens, when those criteria are met, over $1,000, vehicles have to be towed, there was an injury or a fatality, somebody had to be hospitalized, then you need to call the police, and the police have to report to the scene and they have to investigate. So know those are the conditions for the scene. Now, if you are in a scene, a crash, a major crash like that, the first thing you have to do is you have to secure the scene so that you don't get run over by other traffic coming down the highway, because as I said, most major crashes are going to happen on high-speed highways. So you have to secure the scene. You have to put up flares, you have to put up triangles, you have to get other people who stop to help you to direct traffic, and if it's at night, you're going to need some sort of reflective clothing, you're going to need reflective triangles or those types of things so that other vehicles on the roadway can see you. And I do encourage you strongly to have some sort of flashlight in your vehicle, and again, we all have cell phones with a flashlight on our cell phone, so make sure you're waving the flashlight around, because remember, people are attracted to light and movement. And if the four-way flashes will work on some of the cars that are disabled, or the vehicles that are disabled while you're at the major crash site, activate the four-way flashers too. That way that will get the attention of the other traffic. Now, it goes without saying that you need to call the police as well. You need to notify emergency equipment. Now, they say that you have to tell somebody to call police, but I will tell you right now from experience that when you have a major crash, there will already have been 5 or 10 people that have already called emergency services. So it goes without saying that emergency services will be called, because everybody has a cell phone, but you need to get emergency services on the way. After you secure the scene, and I cannot stress that enough, that the first thing you need to do is secure the scene, because you don't want to get run over by other people. The next thing you need to do is you need to attend to the wounded. You need to do somewhat like triage of what they do in an emergency room, which is you need to go around and you need to figure out who you can help and who you can't help, because if there are a number of people who have been involved in the crash, if there's 3 or 4 people, obviously you can't help everybody. If there's other people there that you can designate and assign to help other people, then yes, you can help other people, and you need to stop serious bleeding first, right? And I do strongly suggest that you take a first aid course if you haven't already taken a first aid course. ABC, the first thing you need to do is administer first aid. So it's airways, breathing, circulation. Are the airways blocked? So look in the mouth, look in the nose. Are the things that are in there that are blocking the airways? Breathing, is the person breathing? And finally, circulation. Do they have circulation of the blood through their body? In other words, you need to do heart palpitations or pushing on the chest cavity to get them to circulate blood through their body, because we will die if we don't have circulation of blood to our brain, and that's the reason that you have to have circulation. And then after all of that, you have to attend to major bleeding on the body. If you have major bleeding, you have to get it covered somehow, and you have to put pressure on the wound until emergency crews arrive to attend to the people who have been injured in the car crash. And don't move anybody unless you absolutely have to. Like they're out in the middle of the road somewhere and they're in danger of being run over by another vehicle, then you can move them. But for the most part, if you can leave them where they are and you can get traffic stopped, or you can get it moved around you, redirected, that's the best thing to do, is to leave them in position where they are until emergency crews come, and they'll have a backboard and those types of things. So those are the first aid things that you do. But again, in this day and age of cell phones and GPS and those types of things, emergency crews are a lot better at responding to major types of crashes. And again, you have to take lots of pictures. Take pictures with scale. If you're taking a picture of something, take pictures of license plate numbers so that you have all of the information that you need, because some of the drivers or some of the people involved in the crash will not be able to give you the information that you need. And again, if there are other drivers there that are able to give you information, you need the license plate numbers, you need their driver's license numbers, you need their address, their contact information. All of that information needs to be collected. And again, if you can sketch a picture of the scene, that's going to be even better for reporting a major crash and following up with insurance companies in the post-crash situation. Now, I just talk a little bit about insurance and post-crash investigation. If you sustain a major injury in a car crash, insurance companies are not forthcoming with helping you and giving you money. I've heard awful situations where some of these post-crash investigations and settlements in car crashes and those types of things have taken years. I have good friends who have taken years to settle from insurance companies, and oftentimes there's lawyers involved in those types of things. So know that, and just sort of keep that in the back of your mind. It might help you to drive more defensively, knowing that, you know, nobody wins in a car crash. You're going to be injured, and it's going to cause long-term damage, especially if you get rear-ended and you have soft tissue damage. So make sure that you have your head restraint properly adjusted in your vehicle. That way you're going to prevent against soft tissue damage in your neck, because that's just something that can never be repaired or never heals properly. So that's another thing to keep in mind in terms of being involved in a crash, whether it's a major or minor crash. Quick review of being involved in a crash. There's two kinds of major and minor crashes, and the types of crashes that you're most likely to be involved in are rear-end crashes, head-on collisions, and T-bone crashes. Minor crashes most often are going to happen in urban areas. Major crashes are most often going to happen on highways at high speed in excess of 40 or 50 kilometers an hour. Vulnerable road users, people riding bicycles, motorcycle riders, pedestrians, and people, senior citizens, those with mobility challenges on scooters. Those are the vulnerable road users on our roadway, and pedestrians make up about 25% of road fatalities, so do know that as well, and know what types of crashes that you're most likely to be involved in. There are side swipe crashes where you come in and two vehicles going the same way, but oftentimes those do not involve serious injury or fatality because both vehicles are traveling in the same direction. That's why freeways tend to be a lot safer, because vehicles for the most part are traveling in the same direction, and you don't get that compounding of the speed as you do in a head-on crash, where if two vehicles are doing 50 miles an hour or 80 kilometers an hour, when they hit, they're doing 100 miles an hour. That's the force of the impact. It's an incredible amount of force. So major and minor crashes, and what determines a major crash and police have to be called is that the property damage is more than $1,000, which in this day and age of car crashes is really not that much, because a car, if it's even in a minor crash, looks like it's been completely demolished because of crumple zones in the vehicles that actually protect the passengers inside the vehicle. So the car looks like it's going to be demolished, but there's no injuries. So more than $1,000 property damage, there's been injuries and somebody has to be hospitalized, there's been a fatality, somebody's been killed, or the vehicles have to be towed. That's when you call police. Otherwise, you can just move the vehicles and take it to a claims reporting center. We have those here in British Columbia. I believe they have them in the States and those types of places, where you can just go the next day and report the crash and run it through your insurance and those types of things. So minor crashes, the information that you need to get from the other person, you need to get the license plate number, you need to get the insurance information, you need to get their contact information, you need to get their driver's license number. Now, be respectful of that other person's information, especially in this day and age of identity theft and privacy to information. So just keep it safe and respect that information. We do ask you that. Now, major crashes, if you're involved in a major crash, the first thing you do is make sure you secure the scene. Get people to direct the traffic, get some sort of light or triangles or flares out so that you can warn other traffic. If there are serious injuries, do not move the people unless you absolutely have to protect them, and administer first aid. Take a first aid course if you can, if you already haven't. And when you approach the person, ABC, airways, breathing, circulation are your priorities of the person to keep them alive. And then, you know, you have to attend to major bleeding as well and cover the wound and put pressure on it. If you don't have bandages, a first aid kit and that type of thing, just use your clothing. It's not sterile, but at least it may save their life because you stop the bleeding in the major crash. And again, when you report you take information about the crash, take lots of pictures, do a sketch, make sure in your pictures you have something that will give you scale, a dollar bill, a coin, something that is of known size, that when investigators look at the pictures later, they know how big something is because you put something in the image that is already of a known size. So know that as well when you're doing post-crash investigation. Question for my smart drivers. Have you ever been involved in a crash? Was it a major or minor crash? Leave a comment down in the comment section there. All of that helps out the new drivers learning how to drive. If you like what you see here, share, subscribe, leave that comment down in the comment section there. As well, hit that thumbs up button. Check out all the videos here on the channel if you're working towards a license or starting a career as a truck or bus driver. Lots of great information here as well. Head over to the website, awesome information over there, and great online courses that you can purchase. And later this month, we're bringing out Air Brakes Explained Simply. It's a manual that updates the 40-year-old air brake manuals that are currently in circulation in North America, and it gives you the step-by-step instructions to pass both your theory and practical portion of your air brake that you need for your CDL Class 1 or Class A license. And there's no less than 100 multiple choice questions in the book that you will be asked on a CDL license. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Rick with Smart Drive Test. Good luck on your road test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now. It's raining again. It's raining again. You believe that? Oh wow, man, is it raining a lot. Hi there, Smart.